Hello and welcome to Intro to AI for Ethical Writers Part 2. If you missed Part 1, be sure to go back and check the playlist for the Writers Workout Conference. You'll find me there. And my name is Sarah Bailey, and I'm very excited to be talking about this with you today. So those of you who already watched part 1 of this presentation already know some of these things, but I'm going to pause and introduce myself again for the newcomers. My name is Sarah Bailey again, and I am a freelance book editor. I specialize in developmental editing, line and copy editing, and proofreading of both fiction and nonfiction. I define myself as an AI curious individual. I still haven't leaned completely into using AI for everything and anything, but I'm really interested to see how it can save me time and energy and free up more of that for the things that I really want to invest time and energy in. And lately, I've used AI for fact checking, I've used it for research, and I've even used it for parenting advice. Saying that out loud, I feel a little bit like a lazy parent. I feel like maybe I cheated a little bit, but you know what? I was in a bind and it actually gave some pretty sound advice. So do with that what you will. In part 1 of this presentation, I covered what AI is, what the ethical issues surrounding it are, and how it's affecting the writing and publishing industry. If your knowledge is shaky on those things, I recommend going back and watching that. But in part 2, I'll cover what AI offers us as writers. I'll talk about what the current legal boundaries are to help you understand how to use it without straying into iffy waters. And I'll also talk about recommended guidelines for ethical AI use. So to pick up from where I essentially left off in part 1, rather than asking, should I use generative AI, I feel it's more important to ask, how can I use generative AI ethically? With the first question, we can spend weeks on end debating whether generative AI is an ethical tool. Because it has very, very complicated origins and it still has very complicated ethical implications that we're still feeling. But I feel it's just more productive to focus on what we can do in our sphere and recognizing that AI is changing our industry and many, many aspects of our lives. I think it's more important to focus on how we can responsibly use this really important tool. So here are just a few things that AI can do for you as a writer and how it can enhance your creative processes. It can help crush writer's block. It can solve tricky or simple grammar questions. It can catch typos. It can help you with creating a story outline. It can provide feedback on a scene's pacing or your character's dialogue or plot holes in your story. It can help you draft an elevator pitch or a synopsis if you are starting to prepare a query package. It can help you with research by pulling together resources that would otherwise take you hours to find. It can help you flesh out characters, provide writing prompts, can help you strengthen techniques you struggle with, such as humor. That's one that I have a hard time with. It can help you find comp titles and so much more. It's really exciting, the possibilities that generative AI can offer us in terms of enhancing our creativity. Now, I'm sure some of you are squirming at least a little bit at the thought of bringing AI into your creative processes, especially in some of these more intimate ways, such as creating outlines or developing characters. And it's true, you can use these tools to be lazy or to create subpar work. As of the time of this recording, at the end of January, I know one subject of conversation that has been very prominent is the discovery of of a conversation between an author and AI in a book that hadn't been edited out. The author had asked, like, it included the prompt of the author asking the AI to create a scene based on their parameters. And then it said, certainly, here's the scene with this, this, and this. And then the scene followed. And people have been really kind of upset about, like, oh, this is totally AI generated. She isn't even editing it. What kind of author doesn't go back and read their own work? And yes, we can use it that way. But only if we choose to use it that way. And it's not the point of this presentation to talk about how to use AI, but I want to pause and say that just like with other creative tools, there are many people who are embracing it and finding that it enhances their creativity rather than diluting it or negating it. And I think it's useful to think about other times when technology has challenged our ideas of what counts in the creative sphere. And one of those developments were cameras. When the first cameras were invented, painters had many of the same worries we have now. They worried about becoming irrelevant, and they worried about people using photography to create art that really was cheating. Many people said that photography can't be an art form because the work is all done by a machine and machines can't make true art. But today, we have no trouble appreciating the creativity and expertise that goes into a professional photograph. And photography absolutely has the power to move us just as much as paintings do. And like I said, yes, there are some writers who are and will use AI as a shortcut. But that's only a very limited way to use these tools. I think the more we lean in to using AI as a way to enhance our creative processes, the more we're going to discover, and the more possibilities we will find and create for ourselves. And I think it holds a lot of really promising opportunities for those who do choose to use it. As we're using AI, we need to know how to use it ethically. And that's what the rest of this presentation will be discussing. And here are what I feel are the basic rules of ethical engagement. Knowing legal boundaries, knowing what is accepted in this side of the law at any given time. Being transparent about our AI use, both with publishers and with readers. Always checking our sources, not letting AI, not trusting AI to always give us accurate information. And to avoid spreading misinformation by not checking sources. It's always important to check those. Looking out for bias. We know bias is a problem with AI output, some more than others. And also being respectful and tolerant is another very important ethical practice as we navigate our own use and see how others are using it. So always at the foundation of our AI use, there should be knowing what's legal and what isn't. As of right now in the US, materials written by AI cannot be copyrighted unless they have been significantly edited by a human author. And that's within the US. It changes based on where you are. I know the UK has different provisions. Um, and we should also remember plagiarism rules still apply. We definitely don't want to use AI to plagiarize other people's work. And also, it's on us to know how this changes. There are a lot of things still up in the air. There are battles being fought in court that will take years to settle, and the law is going to take time to catch up. And so it's on us as writers to stay informed of those developments so that we don't stray into the wrong onto the wrong side of the law. And just to prove that this is very true, and things can change at any minute, after I had done the original recording of this presentation and submitted it and everything, there was an update from the U.S. Copyright Office. And so I'm back after having recorded everything else to tell you what the new guidelines are from the U.S. Copyright Office. In January 2025, they released a new set of guidelines that expands on the information that I gave in the previous slide. So nothing super different, but just more clarifications. The key takeaways from the new guidelines are that AI-generated text can be copyrighted provided the author can demonstrate that they significantly edited the text. So it's not just enough to craft a prompt and then say, well, I wrote the prompt that caused the AI to produce this output. No, it has to be, you can use it for a draft, but then you have to do a lot of work on that, whatever AI gives you. Clarification on editing materials with AI. There are no restrictions there. So if you're worried about having issues with copywriting your work because you have used AI to help you with editing, whether that's grammar or style or trying to help you find plot issues, you don't have any concerns there. And AI cannot be legally credited as an author. I bring this up in another portion of this presentation, but now it's a legal boundary. You cannot credit as AI as an author because the purpose of copyright, especially now, is to prove that the work was authored or shaped by a human more than it was authored or shaped by AI. And this one I think is interesting. I don't know if this is different from before, but works written with AI involvement will be evaluated for copyright on a case-by-case basis, which I imagine means that if you're wanting to get your works copyrighted through that office, it's going to take some time because they will be hand reviewing every submission. So really good. I'm really glad that this update was released because it proves my point that there will always be changes and they'll come when you least expect them. So make sure that you are tuned into sources that will keep you updated on what the changes are. And we'll go over some of those sources at the end of the video. So transparency is another foundational rule to follow when we are using AI. When we are submitting works to publishers, we should be disclosing our AI use. We should disclose it whether we are writing and publishing short form or long form works, and whether we are self-publishing or traditionally publishing. And it's good to know what current transparency rules are, but then to go in above and beyond it. For example, Amazon requires that authors disclose whether their work was generated by AI, either in whole or in part, when they upload their work. But that disclosure does not get passed on to its readers. And from the research I was doing, it doesn't seem like it's very clear on that particular aspect. So as of right now on Amazon, there's no requirement that readers should be made aware of whether the work that they're purchasing and reading has been assisted or created by AI or not. And so I think if we are interested in showing others how to use AI responsibly and ethically, we can earn a lot of trust from our readers and from other creators by proactively disclosing within the work itself how we have used AI, no matter what level of collaboration with AI we have used. In books, you should disclose your AI use either on the copyright page, in the front matter, or in the acknowledgments. In short form works such as short stories or poems or articles, disclose it at the top of the piece. Don't hide it at the bottom. I think again, it's about earning readers' trust. And in your disclosures, be specific about how AI contributed. Was it in critiquing? Was it in plotting or research? Was it in a first draft generation, which you then edited? Was it even in image generation or cover art? Be specific. And also name which AI you used. And also know that along with these disclosures, AI cannot be credited as an author or contributor because it isn't a person. It's not recognized as an author in its own right. It is a tool. And so when you are wanting to disclose your use, do it in those areas rather than listing it as an author or a co-author on your work. If we are using AI for research, then it's still on us to check our sources. Hallucination used to be a trademark sign of AI making things up that didn't exist. But that's not as much of a concern now. They have come a long way in preventing AI from hallucinating information and data. But still check. Most AI programs now provide sources for you to see where they're pulling information from and check those sources, and also prompt AI to pull from high quality sources. In the class that I took with Erin Survey, I referenced her in the previous presentation. She said that it doesn't do very well when you ask it to not do something. So for example, if you don't want it to pull from Wikipedia, it's going to have a hard time if you give it a prompt and say don't pull information from Wikipedia, but rather if you give it a positive prompt to pull from high quality sources, whether that's scholarly sources or newspapers or other published material from reputable companies. That's a really important practice. And when you are using it to conduct in-depth research, if you're researching a historical novel, or you need some real science to beef up your science fiction, use it as a jumping off point, not as a comprehensive research approach. Use it to give you a general idea of the subject that you're interested in, and then use the sources that it pulls together for you to dive deeper into it. It's also very important to look out for bias in the output that AI gives us. Remember, AI's output is only as good as its input, and we know that its input definitely contains the whole spectrum of discriminatory views and actions and narratives, and it's known for generating stories and images that favor dominant narratives and groups. An example of this that I chuckled at recently was I was reading an article by Jane Friedman. It's one of the articles that I've linked in the handout. And she generated an image to go at the top of her article. It was an image of publishers rejoicing at the amount of money that they are making, and in this picture, all of the people in the room were white, and all but two of the people were male. And so that's just one very small example of how easily it perpetuates bias. And whether we collaborate with AI or not, it's always our responsibility to ensure that we don't perpetrate or perpetuate bias. Either one, both are bad. So that is always something to be aware of, whether we are working with AI or not. And to go along with that, it's also on us to be respectful and tolerant. When we are submitting to publishers and agents, it's on us to know and respect their policies regarding AI-assisted work. A lot of publishers and a lot of agents are going to be closed to considering works that have been assisted by AI in any way. And it's on us to know those guidelines and to be honest about the work we submit. And if we have created something with the help of AI and they don't want any AI-assisted work in their inbox, then we find somewhere else to submit to. It's also important to be respectful and tolerant of how other people are using AI, as long as they are minding legal and ethical boundaries. We can respect how they choose to use it. If after watching this presentation and after doing your own research, you decide that you are not comfortable using AI to draft a story or create a character backstory or to fill a plot hole, that's fine. There's no one saying that you have to use it that way. But if others do choose to use it that way, and you see others making different creative choices, it's okay to respect their process and to know that they also have just as much right to experiment and find the ways that it does work for them. And vice versa. If you are, leaning fully into AI assistance, but you know someone who won't touch it with a 10-foot pole because they think it's lazy or they think it's wrong, we can respect that. There are many valid viewpoints on the subject of AI use, and I think it's important to be tolerant of those as long as the people who have those views are respecting those ethical and legal boundaries. So before I close out this presentation, I want to look at a couple different things. First is an excerpt from the Alliance of Independent Authors Ethical Author Code, which I highly recommend reading. I've included it in the handout that you'll be able to scan the QR for on the next page. But they have included a clause specifically for AI, and it says, "I declare the use of AI and other tools where appropriate. I edit and curate the output of any generative text tool I use to ensure the text is not discriminatory, libelous, an infringement of copyright, or otherwise illegal or illicit. I recognize that it is my job to ensure I am legally compliant, not the AI tool or service I use." And I think that's an excellent starting point for knowing how we can be ethical users of AI. And then I also want to include another quote from Jane Friedman. I quoted her in the previous presentation, And she says here, authors are responsible for the quality and correctness of their work, whether they use AI or not. Even if the use of AI in content creation blurs the lines of intellectual property and originality, authors remain accountable for the quality of their work. That means you can't blame the AI for getting something wrong. You remain responsible for vetting what the AI does. And this is very true. We are responsible for disclosing our use. We are responsible for ensuring that when we partner with AI, that we are still producing high quality work, that we are not letting it be a way for us to do less work, but rather to use it as a way to enhance our skills and to build our creativity into something that is even more beautiful and even more creative than it was without it. So those are my parting invitations to you. And here is the code that you can scan to receive the handout, which I have stuffed full of AI related resources. I'm sure there's many more that I missed, but I feel like this is a good jumping off point. And if you wish to contact me, my name is Sarah Bailey, and you can find me at sarah.malloy.bailey@gmail.com, or you can find me on my website, baileyediting.com. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your conference, and thank you again for watching.